Thank you for joining us on the Free Time Mastermind podcast. I'm your host, Robert Gaines, and today's guest is George McConnell. Initially, George just wanted to get rid of some excess inventory on Etsy, but then later turned it into $1 million a year business. Now he's also coaching other Etsy store owners through his YouTube page, Etsy Mentor. Without further ado, here's George.
Can you see me okay? Because I'm using my laptop versus the actual camera, because if I was staring at that, then I'd be like staring over here because the screen's over here.
No, that's perfect. And it's funny, I'd like to leave this in because that's a great intro to. I have a device that I bought on Etsy that actually holds the camera down on my screen, and it's a very cool 3D printed thing that I can take my Logitech camera and just slide it down, and you can tell, it has all the ridges in it from
Mhm.
3D printing. And
Is it the one that has like a teleprompter built in too, or no?
no, I wish, yeah,
No.
that would be
I've
that.
seen those. Those are pretty cool. Yeah.
This is ingenious. It just has these teeth, and for some reason I can slide it up and down, and it just stays in place. So I can look right at you, and you're just slightly off.
Yeah.
It's still kind of in my peripheral view. So it's pretty cool. Great tool for
Yeah. I have
podcasting.
this whole thing set up now. So the camera's right there so I can look straight ahead, but then I have the screen over here, a screen over here. So I'm like, well, how am I going to do this?
My question for you: when was the first time you'd heard of Etsy? Way before you started the journey that you're on now.
Honestly, at the time I stumbled on it when I started my own business on there, because I used to use just Shopify, and I would launch different businesses through there and all the online marketing that you have to put ahead of it. So I was like, I could do something on eBay. Let me search up some things on how to do that. And then Etsy came up. I'm guessing because of eBay, and you type the Etsy. This is back in, 2000, the late 2018, because I launched in November 2018, going into December. It was like right at the end. So that's literally how I ended up finding it. I didn't know anything about Etsy before that.
And I wonder if some of that pivot from eBay, because I used to be a seller on eBay a long time ago. And then when eBay, I guess, bought PayPal or vice versa, I forget who acquired who, but the profitability on eBay went down significantly. And me and probably a million other sellers kind of jumped off that ship because it was almost impossible. It got almost
Yeah.
impossible to, because the profit margins got so thin that it got tough. So I think people started to look at alternatives, and Etsy might have been.
I mean, honestly, I didn't expect anything to happen when I put stuff on Etsy. It was just, I was transitioning from one business to another and wanted to get rid of the stuff. And all of a sudden it just took off, and I, kept running. I didn't stop after that part, like most people would get rid of it and then be like, okay, we're done. But I was more like, well, that was quick. Maybe there's something with this. Let's figure this out. And I've always been really, set in my ways of, I need to give something a year, no matter what, even if it's starting to fail, give it a year, see what happens before you just say, okay, I'm done. And as soon as it took off, I was like, well, obviously I should give this one a year and not just be like, okay, wash my hands, I'm done. And I'm glad I did, honestly.
And that's fantastic that you had some immediate success. So initially you were just offloading some inventory from something else,
Yeah,
and
I originally was making cell phone cases. So I had a lot of leather laying around. So I just put leather online, and that's actually what the business I have multiple businesses on Etsy now, but that was my main focus back then, was just leather, and it took off.
that's incredible. And plus, too, I want to say early on, because you and I discussed this before, we're not going to put any links up associated with your Etsy store because it'll
Yeah, that's
actually harm
yeah.
your algorithm. So I just want people to know, George has got a massive, massive presence on Etsy. But if we send everybody over there, it'll actually, I think you
Yeah, how
explained it way
Etsy
better
how
than I
Etsy
did.
works is the conversion rates. It's so important, and I've been trying to explain this in my videos, is so many people go on Facebook and they post their links, and they're hurting their conversion rates, and then they're wondering, hey, why am I never on this first page? Why am I not getting sales? Because when it's just like any website, and if you have people going there and leaving, causes a huge bounce rate. So Etsy's not going to push you because you're not making them money. So, all these people are posting their links and saying, hey, go see my shop. And they're getting buried deeper and deeper inside Etsy by doing that. So, I'll show pictures all day on like in my warehouses and things like that, but I don't want to present anybody with a link because you hurt my conversion rate, you hurt my money, and I kind of like money. So I want to keep that for right now, just to myself, but I don't mind showing anybody all the things I sell, all the
Sure.
stuff, because there's so many different similar things that people sell to try to find, that company. If you find one, I guarantee you're not going to find them all because they're all in different LLCs at this point. So,
That's
you
fantastic.
when you launch your first business, you always launch it in your name. But as you start launching more, you learn to actually incorporate it. So, you may find like one of my stores, but you're not going to find them all, thankfully.
That makes sense. And having that legal protection of an LLC, I'm
Yeah.
actually going to have an attorney on here really soon, and that's going to be exciting because they built a business around providing a legal service. I don't want to say too much about it because I think it's going to be really interesting. But obviously, you went into it a lot more savvy because you were an entrepreneur before you even started to deal with Etsy, so you understood the advantages of having those layers of legal protection. So I hope to
Yeah, I
get
just didn't,
more into
yeah, I
that.
didn't expect anything from that first, store. So I just set it up underneath completely my name and just went with it that way. And then obviously when it took off, I was like, well, obviously I need to do a couple S corps here and LLCs and all that. So each company is based off of different names. And, obviously going down the rabbit hole, you're not going to find out who owns it. It's literally like a celebrity. You're never going to find out all the houses that they
That's
own
right.
because some of the houses are in their names.
And that's a very smart thing too.
Yeah.
Somebody said a few years ago, if you win the lottery, you don't need any new friends. So, when you're successful, you really have to be careful about new associates. But one thing that you did, and it comes to your background that we'll speak just a little bit about, that I've had a few guests on that have more of a scientific or data driven approach towards their business, and I see that that is a real key advantage to have when you're able to analyze things and come to conclusions. It's great to have an idea, to be passionate and want to bring your product to the public. I think that's fantastic. I'm always close to a lot of artists and people that want to express themselves and monetize that, and I really enjoy working with them. But of course, I'm on the other side of the house where I like to look at the data. What's going on out there, what's popping, what's selling, what are the trends, because some of that does come into play, and you've got a background working with and analyzing data. Can you walk us through that?
Sure. So back in 2006, I joined Samsung. So this was way before they even were known for TVs. They later in 2006, they actually took over the TV, that's how they're known now. But in 2006, when I first joined them, they were only known for their cell phones. So I, got to be within a company that was growing at such a rapid pace and seeing the ways that they did things. And they didn't even know at the time on how to do things. So I actually got to learn from them and build it and see how consumers shop, how, they put so much money into all these different things of how are consumers looking at our website, how are consumers seeing our televisions, how are consumers looking at our cell phones, how are consumers looking at the cameras, and they wanted to know everything about how a customer viewed their product. That it was great to be part of that and see how you can navigate a person on a website to make them choose what you want them to buy. And I'm trying to teach people this right now, and I'm going to go more in depth in my videos on YouTube. But when you go to a website, you think that you're going to this website and you're going to look at something, but that website and that company is able to navigate you through a certain way to get you to buy what they want you to buy. And a lot of people actually don't even know that. And I was able to be part of that division at Samsung and learn how to actually do that myself. So it did help me throughout the years of being able to push certain products without actually saying, hey, pointing fingers at it, but you point them in a direction to get them there.
So you were seeing internet basically shopping analytics way before they were accessible. Like now, I can get on Facebook or Meta, and I can see analytics because we did run some Meta ads a while back, and I was able to see how long was someone spending on the page. But regular people, regular consumers like me and very, very small online businesses, we didn't have access to that kind of data. So you were seeing it way
No.
before it was available to people like me, for instance.
Yeah, and that, I'm going to be honest, that really did help me in my, current career, just having my own business right now and not needing a company anymore. But without that, I probably would have never had that knowledge because of how much money they had to spend for that information. And then to be part of it is just, I was lucky in that sense. They had a lot of, different things that we would have people come in and we would sit them in front of computer screens and have them look at stuff. We'd have them go and look at 10 different TVs with no brands on it and figure out how we can adjust our TVs to, make it look better for the consumer as soon as they walked into Best Buy. We also had people go to Best Buy, and I haven't even talked about this in a video yet, but I want to, is how you can actually, push yourself to, you need to continuously do things, right? And one thing that Samsung did that nobody else did was we would send people to Best Buy and teach those sales employees about our TVs. So now when a customer comes to look at a television, what product do they know more about? They know more about the Samsung TVs. So they start pushing Samsung TVs. Then we would have technicians go there, look at all the televisions, and then make sure that they set the settings up for our television to look the best. So now you walk into Best Buy, you want to have a sales associate that knows only about our TVs. And then two, our TV is shining brighter than everybody else's. And that's what we did throughout all 2006 and 2007 and just pushed that every single week. I mean, thousands of employees going to Best Buy on a daily basis.
That's brilliant. So it's not
Yeah.
only the appearance, but you basically have an army of free salesmen. And to
Yeah.
go back what you said about the internet and pushing the consumer through a particular experience, that is a digital version of the analog store where at the cashier it's a pinch point, and the way that all the shelves are aligned route you through this experience. And of course, I think they call them industrial or consumer psychologists anyway, that have been around since the 1950s. People don't realize that the way those stores are aligned and the way certain products are on certain shelves, that is a heavily curated experience, even if it's CVS, Walmart, Best Buy, Big Lots. There are scientists and psychologists that have built that layout almost like the mouse trail where you go through to try to maximize the amount of money that you spend while you're there. And it sounds like Samsung was just doing the digital version of that through the online buying experience.
No, yeah. How consumers see is like what you learn from all these things is we see things in either a Z pattern or an F pattern. Somebody can search that up if you want to, and how you lay it out with it being there. As strange as it is, if you have a ton of pictures on your website, right? You only really look at the left side. You don't look as much as the right side. So like on Etsy, for example, you have 4 rows, right? You're only seeing the first three, and then you're going down, and then you're seeing two, 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 two. But you're seeing all this one. You're not seeing those other ones over there. So if you're putting those in there, those aren't going to get hit as much as these other ones that are on your left panel. Now, if you switch it over and you have text on one side, then you can push it over there, vice versa. But it's all how we see ourselves. And if you notice when you go to different websites, and hopefully people will do this, when you're scrolling through, there's a reason why you have a picture and text, and then a picture over here and text. It's because of how we look at it. We go in a Z pattern as we're reading through. And that's how you can navigate and push them to where you want them to go. If you don't want them to read something specific about that product, then you'll make sure that you have text and text, because as you read, you'll read the text, but then you'll miss that text that you just put over here by putting a fancy photo.
And of course, it was all the rage a few years ago, and it's still used heavily now. But we talk about the click funnel or the squeeze page, which,
Mhm.
in other words, the experiencer. I don't know if the AI can pick up my hands, but it's creating this funnel where at the end you're either going to hit a buy button, you're going through this whole experience, but the last door,
Yeah.
you're either going to have to put in your email, so if they're harvesting your information for later offers, which our site will eventually be probably end up being like that. We're going to take the buy buttons out, and that's another video for another time. But it will ultimately be a just gathering the information, getting the email, or for sites that are selling one thing in particular, you go through this funnel where you get squeezed tighter and tighter until the only option is to either get out, give your email, or hit the buy button. But of course,
And
with
what the crazy
Etsy,
thing is about that too is the color of the buy button means a lot. So, if a lot of people want to make the color of their buy button maybe the color of their logo or whatnot, but that doesn't really push a consumer to want to buy it. It needs to be inviting, and one of the number one buy buttons would be black. As interesting as that sounds, black is a huge one. And then you have either red for urgent or green. Those work as well. Orange is nice and peaceful, but any other colors, you have yellow, people just go right by it. Most of the time, people go by green as well. They'll just scroll right past it. But if you have something like black or red, it really pushes your eyes right to it.
and that was something from Samsung, or that's something you learned after that, after
That's
doing.
something I learned from Samsung as well. We had black. We went with black. So we would we literally every single week would have people come and we would pay them to sit inside a room and we would just present them with different things and we'd watch them. And you had a camera on the screen like this and we would record them so that we could see how their eyes moved. This is way before, they have technology now for that. And we have a lot of different softwares that do that. But at the time, there was no software. So you literally had to do it manually. And when you would normally ask them questions and be like, everybody's getting paid and all that, and you say, hey, what did you see first? And this and that. If you ever notice, a lot of those people in those settings would actually just tell you what they thought that you wanted to hear. So that's why we would have to record them going and navigating through the website because we wanted to see if what they were saying, one, is accurate, and two, just for our own knowledge to see how they would navigate and how we could push them to do certain things.
When did you decide to go from, once you had reached a certain level on Etsy, when did you decide to start the YouTube channel to share the information you were learning?
So as this is going to sound like completely, it wasn't just a, hey, let me just share this knowledge, but I belong to a lot of Facebook groups, and I guarantee a lot of successful companies do as well. And all we do is we just watch. We don't, it's like window, shopping kind of, but you're just watching what people are saying, right? And you never chime in. And one day this person posted something, and I just felt necessary on that day to chime in. And I did. And immediately I was attacked by this random person saying the information I was providing was wrong. And I was like, I don't know how it's possibly wrong. Like, this is what I do. And then they immediately said, this is not what their coach says to do. So I went to their profile, went to their store, and I noticed that they only had 68 sales in 3 years. So clearly
Wow.
their coach is just not helping them. So after finding out the coach's name, went to their YouTube, I was like, this is completely wrong. And it was just annoying. So I decided, hey, you know what? Let's just start a channel and give that information out there because, a lot of the people, what I noticed by going on YouTube and looking at it, they're either they contradict themselves a lot, and a lot of them don't even own stores. And I could tell you right now, a lot of them, even if they say they own stores and they show it, the amount of work that they're supposedly, the amount of money that they're bringing in and the amount of work that they're doing is virtually impossible. I have employees. If I didn't have people working for me, I wouldn't be able to achieve what I've achieved, and if they're just solely doing this on their own, I did it on my own and had 3 employees at a time and was still working 16 hours a day at that point. So I don't know how you possibly can be making the amount of money that you're making and you don't have any employees, and then somehow you can drop 5 videos a week. Like, it doesn't make sense to me,
Sure.
So
Well,
I just felt like it was necessary to give people the real information. And I think that that made me blow up a lot because they saw like I wasn't just BSing them. I'm giving you the real stuff. I'm not going to tell you this is easy, but I'm also not going to sit there and push all these affiliate links telling you to sign up. And sure, I do have links on my description that you can choose, but I always tell you to choose the free version. I'm not telling you to buy, go and get a $30 plan, because when you're first starting out, you shouldn't be trying to do that. I'm not trying to sell you a $9,000 course because you're just starting out in business. You shouldn't be spending money on stuff like that. But they look for these vulnerable people that just want to
Yes.
make a couple extra dollars, and they push their courses and they push these links and they push all these things. And it's like, for what? Just a couple bucks? I mean, I get more happiness from just helping somebody. A comment the other day came on and said, after taking this advice from your SEO, I woke up to 500 new views. And then another person wrote back and said they've had multiple sales. I get continuously emails saying, that this is helping them. And that makes me happy. I don't need you to pay me all this money. That's all I need, is just to know that I'm making a change and a difference in your life.
Sure, sure. Well, it did not escape my notice that since the last time you and I spoke, you've got 1,000 more subscribers on your channel. So don't
Yeah.
think I don't watch, George. I'm
I
watching.
mean, honestly, this is the funny thing about that, is I'm not happy about that. I want more. I want to help as many people as I can. So I haven't released that many videos this past month, and the reason being is because I'm trying to figure out YouTube. I mean, as an entrepreneur, the first thing you do is try to figure everything out, right? You want to know the algorithm, you want to understand how it works, and I want to understand how I can continuously keep you on my video longer, because one, it's going to help you, and two, it will make this channel grow, which allows me to help more people. So for the past month and a half, I that's all I've been doing is testing different things, testing different intros, testing different things in the middle of the videos, showing different content, doing different thumbnails, stuff like that, trying to figure out how I can, gain more interest, because the more people that follow me, the more people I can help.
Are you seeing a lift in anything in particular so far? Because I know it is, for me, YouTube is a black box. And because it's almost like in the old days when you had websites, well, people still do, but when SEO was much more critical for individual websites than it is now, Google would do these updates, and then the top people would be, would go down to the 500th place, and nobody knew what they did and what they changed. And the only difference is now Facebook might be making an algorithmic change monthly. So it's, you used to be okay for about 6 months, and now we're just guessing what's going on in there. But are you seeing a little bit of a lift on certain things?
So right now my retention rate has went up about 20%. So that's good. And keeping visuals. So I'm noticing the more visuals I add in during the videos are helping people. I feel like when I'm speaking, they hear me, but it's better if you read it at the same time. So I feel like that may be helping and keeping people more involved during when I'm talking. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, but there are times that I have to rewind it and then I write it down myself. So I feel like that's part of why that retention is being higher now, is because instead of them needing to write it down, I'm writing it down for them and they can take a screenshot. What may seem boring to certain people, aren't boring to others. So I'm the type of person that will, if I want to learn something, I'll watch that entire video. Now, if I want to learn one specific thing, I'm going to skip through that video until I find that one specific thing. What I'm noticing is I want to give everybody all the information in that one video. So I need you to watch the whole entire video and not drop off. And that's where those visuals I feel are keeping those people there longer. And if you go through the analytics, you can actually see, like, so it drops off like this, right? But if they go back, so say they go all the way here and then they want to go, oh, what happened here? Every time they click back, it creates a spike. So I'm noticing when I put little things, it's creating those spikes, which means that those little bullet things that are coming up on the screen are helping people understand that's what he meant, or that's what he's saying, like in this instance.
So first you had the leather cell phone cases, and you did the natural thing that anybody would, if you had a bunch of sales, you'd say what anybody would say. Oh my gosh, I need to sell some more stuff. I need to get some more stuff to sell. So can you explain a little bit about how once the cases were gone, Can you walk us through that process from for the cell phone cases into what the business has become now?
So I've had multiple businesses ever since I was in like the third grade. I've always wanted to, and that just comes from my childhood. I wasn't born into, wealth. I was born into poverty. I didn't have much. My father worked three jobs. We didn't have, heat or hot water sometimes. And I was in New Jersey. So, sleeping under a couple of blankets and some sweatshirts was normal for us. And I always wanted more. So even at the age of, when I was in third grade, I used to buy these things from my cousin, and they were Cabbage Patch like stickers or whatever they were. I'd have to figure it out and send it to you.
Garbage pail
But
kids, I already know.
that's it. That's it. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
So he would buy them and he would collect them. So I bought the whole entire pack from him for $1. I'd bring them to school and sell them for 25 cents each. And that was
brilliant.
my first business. After that, I kept expanding. So every time I had another business, in the sixth grade, I made like $2,000. Then I would just start selling things throughout all of high school. And anyway, it leads to me, starting at Samsung and being in the tech world. I love technology. As soon as I got a computer, I loved it. So I really thought that that would be where my, niche was. My forte is technology, right? And I started with cell phone cables. I made a lot of money with cell phone cables. I actually sold them on eBay. I sold them on Wish. I sold them all over the place, even my own website. And then I moved, and my mover stole over $30,000 worth of cables from me. So clearly, that business went underneath because I couldn't fulfill the orders that I was supposed to fill due to the move. So the next one was like, okay, maybe cell phone cables aren't there. Let's try cell phone cases since new cell phone comes out every year. Started making those, and I wanted to do personalized ones. So I had leather that would just go in there, everything slapped in there, glued in, send it out. Doesn't cost much money, but you sell them for, 25, $30 a pop. They can be personalized, and there you go. After a year of that, I just didn't see the profit that I wanted to, but I had a lot of leather. So I was like, what do I do with this? So I was going to put it on eBay, and then that's when I came across Etsy, threw it on there, and literally within that week, it was gone.
In a week.
Yeah.
That's fast. That's
Yeah. That's where, if it didn't happen that fast, I would have just been like, oh, well, okay, whatever. So I was like, all right, that's interesting, how fast it went. So then, I took the $100 and I said, I'm going to take $100 and I'm going to buy all the leather I can. And I just bought random colors, and some plaid because it was near Christmas, and plaid usually sells a lot towards Christmas. And I bought glitter from Hobby Lobby of all things. So I went to Hobby Lobby back when they used to do those 40% off, and I bought all the glitter, and I would go there every day and just buy more and more glitter. Posted it online, sold out again. So then I'm like, obviously I'm on to something. And then that's when I said, I'm gonna take all the money I have and earned and throw it right back in there. And it blew up from there.
So it sounds like, and again, I don't want to shoot over anybody's head, but it sounds like, and of course it's talked about, so maybe everybody might understand what I'm talking about here. But it sounds like you were also engaging in retail arbitrage, where something in your area might be a lot cheaper, and you put it online, and of course
In
people
the
in
beginning,
California,
yes. Yeah,
yeah,
because I wasn't sure where to even get it from in the beginning. And I feel like that's where a lot of people have issues is they don't know where to get it. And then if they do, they buy too much at a time. Everybody is in such a rush to make money and they'll spend $1,000, but then you don't know if that item's going to sell, right? So in the beginning, you should spend a little bit more and test it and figure out what's going on. Now, one of the things that set me apart from everybody else, and Jesse Itzler, actually, if you ever heard of him, he actually talks about this, is when you don't um when you're not part of a certain like community or like product and like that industry, right? And you come from all the way over here. So I was in the tech industry, and this is leather. Everybody in the leather industry did everything the same, but I was the tech industry, and it was completely different, which really threw, everybody for a loop on how much my customer service and how involved I was, and, my price points and things like that, because I didn't understand how all these people over here are selling things. I understood how I would sell it. and that made me stand out a lot.
And I'm sure you've got some imitators too, once people kind of figure out,
Yeah,
either not just through your videos, but they might see that you're a competitor in the same space and they're like, whoa, this guy, how's this guy? Because you can see, I assume on all your various outlets on Etsy, your various stores, you can see um, either through the feedback, you can see that, those various stores are doing very, very well because some of
I
that
actually
data is
had
revealed.
a couple of the stores take my titles completely and my descriptions, even down to the emojis I used. Uh, it's a form of flattery,
Yes, yes.
but at first it would annoy me, and then you kind of have to laugh it off because obviously you're scaring people. Even with this YouTube channel, me taking off so fast, there's already people that have, said certain things in their videos or have changed their direction. Um, and it makes me laugh thinking that I'm shaking things up so much that you're already feeling it. So that it kind of makes you happy in the same sense too, because you're ruffling some feathers and you're making them scared
Are you
because they don't know
seeing,
your next move.
are you,
And
oh, sorry, go ahead.
but go ahead.
I was going to say one, since your presence on Etsy is you've got a large footprint on there. I've always wondered because I've never worked my way up on any of those platforms to a point where I'm treated differently by the corporation themselves. So, do you have better access to anything from tech help to support because of the footprint you have with Etsy now?
What's funny is you used to, 2 years ago, you would have unbelievable support. If I had an issue, I had a direct phone number I could call. Now it's not so much because they rely on AI. So even the top sellers don't get as much support as we used to. I had an issue with a payment not going through, and somebody overseas purchased something for, I think it was like $1,500, and they were trying to hold it. But I actually spoke with that person. That person's bought from me a lot. Is just they were seeing it as fraud and they needed this product. So I was able to call them up and get it, right through. Now you can't do that. Even as a top seller, you don't have direct phone numbers as much as you used to. You don't have direct contact. And even if you go into the chat support, it's literally AI. And I could tell because I use AI every day. It's a bot talking to you. It's not actually not even a person.
and and I can only speculate, but I know that Etsy was one of those companies. There were companies that really got hurt during the pandemic, but there were also some industries like the www.masterclass.com, teaching you to be a movie producer or whatever they were
Mhm.
doing. They did really well. They came out of nowhere and did really well during the pandemic because people were sitting at home. Etsy was one of those also too that got a massive bump during the pandemic, uh, arguably their best years. So obvious. So with that amount of money raining down, I assume they had a bigger budget for more staff. And now that we're in a what it seems to me, I'm not an economist, but it certainly looks like an economic contraction to me. I'm in the insurance industry, and we're seeing some things I won't mention here, but very strange anomalies that are also consistent with an economic contraction. When we're seeing it through the eyes of the consumer. So we're seeing, some unusual consumer choices and behaviors that are again consistent with things slowing down. And Etsy might be, coming out of that post-pandemic, and now they're in layoffs and things are more automated and going to AI. But we're seeing that across a lot of
Uh,
different industries.
Yeah, I think that's going to be everywhere. I mean, AI is not going anywhere. It's going to continuously grow and you know replace jobs. It's much easier to use, much more reliable. I've been in the corporation world for 20 years. So the corporate world and how people are and workers are. I don't mean this in a mean way. Sorry, but they get compliant after some time, and they lack ambition and they're just there for a paycheck, whereas AI is going to continuously grow and you don't have to pay them. So I could see a lot of corporations and a lot of companies are going to replace their employees with the AI because they won't have that. They won't have employees that are just there just to collect a paycheck and come in exactly at 8 o'clock and then leave at 5. They're going to be there 24/7 and they don't cost anything.
Right. They don't fall down the stairs and get an attorney and have
Yeah.
because we had
It's funny because when you hire people, and I had that luxury at Samsung and Sharp, is when you're hiring people, you can see that they start getting comfortable to say, and they're like, okay, well, I can just do a little bit less and I'll be fine. I'm going to slide under the radar for, 10, 15 years and just collect a paycheck. And it's like, that's not how a company can continuously grow. We want somebody with ambition. We want you to want more for yourself. And obviously, we don't want you to work your, self to the bone, but we don't want you to just sit there and do the bare minimum. But I could see companies, making it a requirement that when they hire you, you have to have knowledge of, either ChatGPT or Gemini, Copilot. You have to have some sort of knowledge because it will help you. And I could see that in the next year that that's going to be required, um, that on your resume at somewhere you need to know how to use this software.
sure, sure. It's like, hiring somebody that knows MS-DOS in 1985. I remember
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that
Are you a
I was young,
Microsoft,
but
do you know Microsoft Excel? Yeah. Like,
that's right. That's
and
right.
what's crazy now is, that's the thing, like AI, Copilot, it's, integrated into that. So you don't even really need to know Excel anymore. You can literally tell Copilot what to do and it'll do it. Before you used to have to memorize things, all these different keystrokes on there to get certain things to pop up on your Excel sheet. Whereas now you just tell Copilot to do it, but you need to know what to say or what to do.
One thing I wanted to ask you, when you got through and had sold the leather, you obviously moved it out of the house at some point, or did you already have a warehouse, or were you working from your home and then later went to
I
the warehouse?
I was working from my home, so it blew up so quick that, I mean, I have all these pictures. Thankfully, I was listening to a Gary V book, and he said you should always take pictures and videos of your process and
Oh,
what you're building. So I did, and I'm glad I did because looking back at it, it's pretty insane. At one point, I was growing at such a rapid speed that I had brand new couches, and I grabbed them and threw them away. So I literally took over my entire living room and it just had leather in there. And I built it up and it just kept on growing and growing and growing until I couldn't be in my apartment anymore. And then that's when I needed a warehouse. And that was my first warehouse, which was actually very cheap compared to the last warehouse. But it was interesting to see how fast it grew and then the space. And then at that point, I met my now wife, started dating her, and she came over to my house and was like, "What the heck is this? Like, there's no couch, there's nothing here, there's just leather everywhere.
I love it. Yeah.
Where are we gonna hang out?" I'll be like, "Oh, well, in my bedroom." It's like, "Oh, okay, like that doesn't sound strange," and but um and then getting that first warehouse, it was $800 a month, and it wasn't that bad. It was what is it, 1,500 square feet. It was pretty good size, and they redid it all for me to make it just one big room with just pillars, which allowed me to grow into that. But then again, like I said, growing at such a rapid pace, I needed to expand and have another one and another one. And I ended up finally having a 6,500 square foot warehouse.
Wow. Okay. And I assume you went up, a lot of those warehouses, you can grow vertically. So you started moving, moving the product.
Yes.
And if
Yeah.
it's okay to share, what are the let's say the top five categories or items that you're mostly dealing with now? Because before you had mentioned it was leather products and cell phone cases. Have you transitioned into a different branch of products?
So leather is the biggest one because everybody always wants to make stuff, so that is the top seller. Then from there you have the POD. So I have a POD store that does a lot of accessories and things like that, and a digital store that just handles like planners and things. That's mainly you make it once and you're good to go, so you don't ever have to make it again. So it doesn't make a lot of money, but that money is consistent and you don't have to like invest a lot of time into it, just that initial time. The POD, it's something that I always wanted to try. So I did that about like a year ago, launched that. And I did try to do shirts in the beginning, did have shirts and ran with that. But the shirt world is a very different thing. Apparel is not easy, and especially on Etsy with there being over, 10 million shirts and 14 if you count the 14 million if you count the ads. So 14 million shirts on there, it's hard to compete. So I went with something that was more like geared towards, when are you going to use it? Accessories being as that you can use it for vacation and anytime that you need something, if you're going on a trip anywhere, things like that. I am horrible at making things. That's why I sell things. Me trying to make something, it's one, I'm a perfectionist, and then two, it's like it just goes to crap and it looks horrible. Um, One thing I just do want to mention, anybody that does want to get involved in Etsy, 82% of the people that purchase on Etsy are female. So all of my businesses are geared towards
I
female.
see.
I do have male, consumers, but most of my stuff is geared towards females because that's who shops there. So I'm not going to, sell something for, uh, something that a man's going to look for because I only have what, like a 20% chance, well, actually
That's right.
18% chance, of getting a sale versus 82.
So that's very much about understanding the demographic
The
of the
demographic, yeah.
platform. And when you said, just so that everybody understands, when you said Gary V earlier, I assume we're talking about Gary Vanderchuck.
Yes, yeah.
And I didn't know who he was until about 6 months ago, but I consume a lot of his stuff. Now he's a real, I mean, he says it like it is, which I love, and you being from New Jersey, I'm sure you like that direct approach, which I do too. But he's also very positive. So he's kind of direct and to the point, and yet he's positive at the same time. I think it makes his material more interesting, I think.
There's a couple things, obviously, I don't agree with on what he says. There's also other people that I listen to that do the same thing. Andy Frisella, he loves Gary as well, but he says some of the things that he suggests he doesn't like either, like being driven by materialistic things. That's one of the things Gary Vee says not to do. And I am driven by materialistic things. I want to have what I want to, if, I just said, okay, I'd be great with a 9 to 5, or okay, I'd be great with $100 in my pocket. No, I want the finer things. My room may not look amazing behind me, but that's because I'm a guy and I don't care. I'll literally work at a table, like my kitchen table. I've worked at my kitchen table for months and, at a time, and I could not care less. But as soon as I walk out the house, I want to be able to go eat where I want to eat, drive what I want to drive, fly where I want to fly. Those are those materialistic things. But in my mind, it's why you work so hard.
Sure.
You only have this one life, and you just want to enjoy it. Tomorrow's not promised, so why not? As soon as I leave the house, I enjoy my day.
And I have neighbors, and I'm in Texas right now. I'm in Dallas, but I live in Central Florida, and I have neighbors in adjacent neighborhoods that live in single wide trailers, and they have $120,000 fishing boats, and it pulled by an $80,000 truck. So their house, that doesn't matter to them because their passion is fishing. And I also have friends that live modestly, but they have a $3,000 set of golf clubs. So usually the
Yeah,
spending is around whatever the hobby is, or cigar
it's what makes
aficionado.
me happy. Yeah. I mean, my wife loves bags, so she has like every bag that you could possibly think of. So, but me, I'll wear the same shirt, for 5 years because it doesn't matter to me what shirt I'm wearing, but it does matter to me what I'm eating for dinner or where I'm vacationing. I want to be in a nice hotel versus just a basic hotel. That's just, even if you're not staying in the hotel, just going back to it, it's something that I always wanted. And that's, a lot of people look at it as materialistic, but you have to look at it as what makes you happy at the end of the day. You're doing this for a reason. You're, yes, you have a drive, but you need that little bit of happiness here and there. And those are the little things that make me happy.
Sure. And you and I talked about that a little bit before, but I mean, people have seen enough episodes to know that I do a little bit of a pre-interview, and you and I were talking about the work-life balance, and I really enjoyed what you said about, you're very honest with people about the level of work that it takes to get
Yeah.
things done. And, a lot of the people that are selling the memberships and the ads, and they're selling the dream. But I think you set very realistic expectations. And I would assume you're still working very long hours on your business to continue to ensure that it's successful.
Last night I was up till about 4:30 in the morning, so I don't sleep. And what's funny is I actually now I've hired somebody to, do my videos for me. If I send the video off, they'll put them all together. So I'm not sitting there doing it myself. So they hopefully will get better. And I have somebody doing my thumbnails. And they wrote me back and said, I used your picture. Oh, I said, can you get rid of the lines underneath my eyes? And they said, well, I used the picture that you gave me. I said, yeah, I'm old and I don't sleep. Like, you need to get rid of these lines for me.
It's
Make me
funny.
look younger. Um, so it is what it is. I mean, some people don't, they want to only work 2 hours. And the best way to explain that is what's his name? Ferris. I forget his first name.
Tim Ferriss,
Tim Ferriss. He wrote that book,
4 Hour Work Week.
4 Hour Work Week. Now, what's interesting enough that a lot of people won't know is he wrote that book, 4 Hour Work Week. If you ask him how many hours he spent selling that book, going, around to different places online, talking to people, it wasn't 4 hours a week. That man spent, hundreds of hours a week selling that book to
That's
you.
right. Yeah.
And that's what people don't see. It's like there's hours behind your work, and it just depends on how much you're willing to put into it.
Are people pitching you their products to sell on your Etsy? Are you seeing anything like that? I would think with your growth,
I've
you
had
would get.
that happen before, yeah, and it really depends. I mean, if I don't like something, I'm not putting my name behind it.
And the leather, I meant to ask this before. So the leather, is the leather product something raw that your buyers are going to convert into something else, or are you selling a finished leather product?
It's just leather that they're making things with. So a
Right.
lot of the people, being as they make earrings, they make bows, they make clothing. One person made a suit because it was like stretchable leather. Another person makes Barbie doll outfits. So even though that the age range is all different, because I always talk about, knowing your target audience and your demographic, you need to know the age range. My age range is all over the place, but one thing that's not is that they're trying to make something with that product. So I target people that are, crafty and want to make things.
Without going too deep in the weeds, the more a product is processed. So let's just take food. A carrot is a lot cheaper than the cut up, ready to go in the microwave steamable carrot. So the more a product goes through a process, the more expensive it is. You can buy a raw diamond for X price, but if it's in a setting in a ring, it's significantly higher. And typically, the closer you get to the more raw product, the less profit there is. So you've not only just figured Etsy out, you've also figured out, because it's tougher to make money on the more raw products. So
Yeah.
you've obviously cracked that code, and most people would only be able to get an advantage in a raw product if they were buying massive quantities, because then you get that quantity discount. So does that factor
So
in?
that all depends on one is your supplier and finding the right supplier and then having a connection with them. So like, you have a partnership with them. My actual leather, because most of it is the faux leather, but the actual leather itself comes from Italy. And the faux leather comes from China. And that is a lot cheaper than the actual leather itself. But the leather coming directly from Italy, people would think that's going to be expensive, but it's actually not. The shipping is. So the more you can get shipped to you at once, the cheaper it is because then you're only paying one shipping cost. The leather itself for an entire like hide, you can pay $10. It's like really nothing. And then you cut them into different shapes and sizes. Um, it really doesn't cost that much at all coming directly from Italy. It's the shipping cost that
I
does. As
see.
soon as you charge $30 and then you have a $10 leather hide, it's $40. You're like, well, that's a lot of money. But if you buy a couple of them at a time, like 1,000, you only have to pay one shipping cost. It comes down to about like 12.50, maybe $13.
Well, I was kind of making fun of myself earlier in another conversation where I realized that some of the strategies I'm using now are just a slight variation of things I was doing in high school, you know, so I didn't really change the process. And as I was thinking about the leather, I could see the Garbage Patch Kids cards, and I thought, my God, he's using the Garbage Patch card strategy for leather. You know, he's getting the bigger quantity, cutting it down into
Yeah.
a smaller, which
I
is
did. That's
exactly what you
exactly what
did.
I do. Yeah. I cut it into, because this is the funny thing is a lot of people think that you have to sell yards. People don't want yards because they
Right.
can't store it in their house. So if you sell it and they only want to maybe make a bow or two for their, grandchild, and you only have to sell an 8 by 10 and you're good to go. And, you can cut about 20 of those out of that hide for $10.
That's true.
So
That's true.
see all the profit that comes from there. It's just knowing who to contact, where to go, and the quality, of course. The quality is very important because if you sell shit quality, you're gonna get, bad reviews.
That's true. Yeah, people are pretty brutal in the
Yeah.
comments and the stars. Well, you don't strike me as the type, and we didn't discuss this before, so this is the closest to a gotcha question as I have, but I think I already know the answer. You don't strike me as the type of guy that would ever put all of his eggs in one basket. So outside of Etsy, what are your future plans? Because I know you probably don't have everything vested in Etsy. You probably are looking at, because you know platforms have their lifespan, and you know
Hmm.
eBay was really big and they went through their thing, and you know Etsy had its big hour in the pandemic, and now they're still doing fantastic, obviously, but you know there's going to come a time where they're going to get bought out or somebody else is going to take their market share. What are you thinking about in the next 2 to 5 years? What plans are you working on now to transition your current business?
So in addition to Etsy, I also consult businesses. So, I have that consulting. But in the next 2 to 5 years, I would love to get into real estate. Always
Oh,
wanted to have rentals. Even if it was just Airbnbs that I could jump into here and there. And, instead of staying at a hotel, it would be my actual place. But that's what I would love to get into in the next 2 to 5 years. But as of right now, yeah, not everything is just involved in Etsy. I do have other things on other platforms like Walmart, Michaels, and things like that, even eBay. But then on top of that, I also, do online consulting for businesses and different strategies that they can do to grow their business. Because, with any niche, you can really grow it to unbelievable amounts. You just need an outside perspective. A lot of people are so stuck in their ways that they don't see the whole picture, and that's where somebody that can come from the outside and look at it and say, well, you need to do this, this, this. It may sound so simple, but doing that one little strategy can, double or triple your profits. But you can't see it because you're just in the mix of it.
that's right.
So
Well, that's why a
that's
guy
what
from Samsung can come in and hit Etsy from a completely new and undiscovered angle and get that early and now sustained success that you did. And I didn't mention the YouTube channel before, but your YouTube channel is Etsy Mentors. I'll have the video editor.
so I actually changed it to mentor. They allowed me to change it because when I first signed up, it wouldn't allow me to do mentor. It only was mentors. And I was like, why? So
Yeah.
finally, after I hit 3,000 subscribers, they let me change the name to mentor.
Well, George, I really appreciate your time. It was a real pleasure. I know we were working to get together for a while, so I thank you so much for coming to see us, and we'll see you again soon.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, George. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for joining us on the Free Time Mastermind podcast. I'm your host, Robert Gaines, and we appreciate you stopping in and checking out the channel. If you would, please click like, subscribe, hit the notification button, leave a comment, share the video with someone. We've got some fantastic episodes coming up. Also, too, for today's guest, check out the description to find out more about them, and also look at the links that we've posted below that for ways to get connected with us. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.